Welcome to the Sun today for the 25th of February 2025. The main news today is that there was a flare that produced a CME that might head our way in the next few days. Despite the fact that sunspot number rose to about 160, overall solar activity was pretty quiet. We had one new sunspot region. Flare activity was symmetrical in that it had 2 C flares, 2 M flares and 2 coronal mass ejections. All of those are down from yesterday. The solar wind is meandering around at about 400 kilometers per second, and the magnetosphere is surprisingly quiet still. Let's take a more detailed look at the sunspots. We had 11 regions on the disk, one of which was new, region 4008, right on the east limb. As I said, the sunspot number had gone up slightly since yesterday. Interestingly though, the area had dropped to 1290 millionths. We're about to lose a couple of regions in the next day or two. That's 3993 and 3996. How is the magnetosphere doing? The KP index is varying between 1 and 3. That's a little bit down from yesterday. The solar wind is at about 400 kilometers per second. You can see that the KP index is rising maybe slightly towards the end of this period, but we'll have to see tomorrow what it actually turns out to be. On the right we have the auroral arc, and that doesn't look anything special. If you look down on the sun, the Earth is sitting right above that large coronal hole in the northern hemisphere. And if the solar wind were coming out radially, that means that we would be getting an influx of high-speed solar wind right at this time. But as you saw, the magnetosphere is showing no sign of it as yet. That's because as the sun is turning, the magnetic fields bend around in a spiral pattern, the so-called Parker spiral. And the solar wind from that area hasn't hit us yet. That will happen tomorrow, and solar wind speed should go up. Also, it's interesting to note that those coronal holes in the southern part of the sun seem to be joining up. In fact, it looks rather like a large raven down there. And there may be even some hint that there's a channel opening up between the southern coronal holes and the northern coronal holes, making one large coronal hole. We'll see about that on the next rotation. We had another long duration event today. It wasn't quite as long as the previous one, but it was quite extended. And long duration events are usually associated with coronal mass ejections. And that's, I think, is the origin of the coronal mass ejection that will hit us in a couple of days' time. The X-ray background is at C2 level. That's slightly down since yesterday. Well, let's take a look at that long duration event. We're going to use the 131 angstrom channel from SDO. The event goes on for nearly 4 hours, and it was in the southwest part of the sun. If you look at the movie, you'll see that there's ejecta from this thing, which means there's likely to be a coronal mass ejection. We'll look at 2 movies about the coronal mass ejections. First of the movies is going to be the C2 movie with the helium-2304 image in the center, and that's going to show this coronal mass ejection much more clearly. And then we'll show you the C2 plus the C3 movie, which shows you the extent of this coronal mass ejection, which is quite large. Well, we've cast the die in trying to get a new forecast. I imagine that the sunspot number will remain about the same, may drop a bit as we lose those 2 regions over the west limb. Flare activity is moderating, and it is likely that the solar wind will increase, and so therefore minor geomagnetic storms are possible tomorrow. In the longer term, we may get a major storm from the CME. Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoy these videos, please pass them on to friends or neighbors or relations who you think might benefit from understanding more about how the sun works. And so until next time, stay safe and goodbye.